to me with a question that belongs not to the casual chatter of psychology, but to the trembling depths of the human soul. Why do INTJ and INFJ empaths seem to terrify narcissists more than anyone else? If I were to answer in the manner of ordinary science, I would say it is because of contrasting psychological types, conflicting energies, opposing strategies of self-preservation. But that would be only the shell of the truth. What truly frightens the narcissist is not merely the intellectual acuity or intuitive foresight of these rare introverted intuitives, but the mirror of the soul that they hold, the unflinching vision into shadow and archetype that cannot be evaded. This is not a matter of personality test categories alone. It is the living drama of psyche and spirit, the eternal conflict between truth and mask, between the self and the false self. When I speak of the INTJ or INFJ empath, I am speaking of a soul structure that lives by intuition directed inward, guided by the deep waters of the unconscious. Their feeling, though introverted, burns with intensity, attuned to hidden motives, sensitive to currents unseen. In such people, the unconscious is not a distant myth, but a constant companion, whispering symbols and premonitions in every silence. They are not content with surfaces. They read the gesture behind the word, the tremor beneath the smile, and so when they encounter a narcissist whose very survival depends on the maintenance of a mask, a grandiose image divorced from truth, they become the dangerous ones because they see too much. The narcissist, remember, is a creature of fragile construction. Though he appears powerful, arrogant, untouchable, his fortress is made of mirrors, reflecting illusions of grandeur. Beneath lies an abyss of emptiness. A child wounded and terrified of insignificance, he must seduce, manipulate, dominate, for without the gaze of others affirming his specialness, he collapses into despair. He fears nothing more than exposure. And here comes the empathic, intuitive, whose very nature is to penetrate facades, to feel into hidden wounds, to call forth the shadow. It is like placing a candle in a room full of rotting secrets. The light does not attack, but its very presence reveals what was meant to stay hidden. To the narcissist, that light is unbearable. You must imagine the archetypal stage on which this encounter unfolds. The narcissist is the magician of illusion, the trickster who survives by deceiving others and himself. The empathic, intuitive, by contrast, carries the archetype of the seer, the prophet who cannot help but perceive the deeper pattern. The narcissist whispers, "Believe me, I'm a god among men." The empath feels, "You are afraid of your own darkness, and you try to bury it beneath my admiration." And in that moment, the narcissist is undone, for the empath has touched the forbidden truth. This is why so many narcissists are drawn compulsively to such people. They are both fascinated and terrified. They sense in them the one who could finally unmask them, the one who might either save or destroy. Do not think this dynamic is merely interpersonal. It is mythological. It belongs to the eternal story of light and shadow, of the hero and the dragon, The empath is not consciously seeking to destroy the narcissist's defenses. Often they long only to understand, to heal, to love. Yet their very presence exerts an alchemical pressure. They awaken the unconscious in others, and the narcissist, who has repressed his wound more fiercely than most, feels this awakening as an existential threat. He would rather attack, devalue, discard than allow himself to be seen. Thus, the empath's greatest gift becomes the source of their suffering. They frighten because they reveal, and in revealing, they endanger themselves. I have seen this pattern emerge again and again in dreams brought to me by those who suffer under narcissistic entanglements. A woman dreams of being chased by a masked king whose crown is fragile, made of paper. She touches it and it dissolves, and he turns into a child weeping, or a man dreams of a beautiful palace filled with mirrors. But when he looks closely, all the mirrors show him the same terrified face, screaming silently. Such dreams are not fantasies, they are psychic truths, revelations of archetypes moving within the collective unconscious. The narcissist is an actor in the dream of culture, wearing the costume of power, but carrying within the wound of abandonment. The empath is the dreamer who cannot help but notice the scream behind the silence. Why do INTJ and INFJ empaths, in particular, embody this role so strongly? Because their dominant function, introverted intuition, is the gift of vision into patterns unseen. Where others are deceived by charm, they notice the fissures in the performance. Their secondary function feeling may be quiet, but it is precise, like a tuning fork that resonates with hidden dissonance. They do not require evidence in the ordinary sense. They feel the truth before it is spoken. And because they are introverts, they are not dazzled by the narcissist's external display. They withdraw into their inner world, and from that sanctuary they see the whole stage. They become the ones who cannot be fooled for long. And this is terrifying to the one who survives only by deception. But let me take you deeper. What frightens the narcissist most is not simply exposure, but reflection. The empath does not merely observe. They reflect. They mirror back not the false self, but the wounded child, the shadow, the emptiness. And in this reflection, the narcissist glimpses for a moment the truth he has spent his life escaping. To look into the eyes of such an empath is to look into a mirror that cannot be broken, a mirror that reveals not glory, but fracture. It is like the myth of Medusa in reverse. Instead of being turned to stone by the monstrous face, the narcissist turns to stone at the sight of his own soul, revealed too clearly. There is a paradox here. Many empaths, especially those of intuitive temperament, carry within themselves their own wounds, their own shadows of self-doubt and yearning. It is precisely this woundedness that makes them so perceptive. The narcissist senses this too and attempts to exploit it, to bind the empath through cycles of idealization and devaluation. Yet the empath's wound, when integrated, becomes their strength. The very thing the narcissist tries to exploit becomes the light that reveals his own hidden wound. This is the alchemy of the psyche. The wound becomes vision, the pain becomes perception, and so Even when the empath suffers, they remain the more powerful, for they are closer to the truth. I must remind you that the unconscious does not move in straight lines. It moves in waves, in symbols, in paradoxes. The relationship between narcissists and empaths is not simply predator and prey. It is a dance of archetypes, a collision that can awaken both. For the empath, it is a call to boundaries, to selfhood, to individuation. For the narcissist, though he resists, it is an invitation to confront the shadow he has denied. Most reject this invitation, for it feels like death, but some, when confronted by the empath, who will not be deceived, are forced at last to acknowledge their wound. And in that moment begins the possibility of transformation, rare, but possible. You see, the fear of the narcissist is not only personal, it is collective. Our culture itself has become narcissistic, obsessed with image, performance, power. And empaths, especially those with intuitive depth, carry the medicine of reflection. They are the prophets of the age, the ones who remind us that beneath the glittering crown lies a frightened child. Beneath the empire of mirrors lies a void. To silence such voices is to silence the soul. That is why so often they are mocked, dismissed, attacked, yet still they rise. For the unconscious itself demands expression, and through them it speaks. As I say these words, perhaps you feel the tension in your own life. Perhaps you have known the gaze of the narcissist, the seduction and the sting. Perhaps you have doubted your perception, wondering if you imagined the fractures you saw. Let me tell you, what you saw was real. Your intuition is not madness, it is vision. The narcissist's fear is the proof of your power, but this power must be tempered with wisdom. To see the shadow is not enough. One must also guard the soul. Do not give your light recklessly to those who would devour it. The mirror you carry is sacred. It must be offered only where there's willingness to see. In mythology, there is always a cost to being the seer. Cassandra saw the future, but was never believed. Tiresias saw the truth, but was struck blind. To see into the unconscious is to bear a burden, yet it is also the path to wholeness. For in seeing others, you are compelled also to see yourself. The empath's journey is not merely to unmask the narcissist, but to unmask their own longing, to heal what cannot be healed. For if you try to save the one who refuses to see, you may drown in his abyss. But if you learn to see without attachment, to reflect without absorbing, then you become more than a victim. You become an agent of individuation, a bearer of the self. The narcissist fears you not because you are cruel, but because you are luminous. He fears you not because you attack, but because you perceive. He fears you because you carry within you what he has buried within himself, the wound, the feeling, the truth. And so he lashes out, or flees, or clings in desperate cycles. But know this, his fear is his confession. It is the sign that your vision has touched the place he cannot bear to face. And in that, there is a strange kind of justice. For though you may suffer, you also carry the key to freedom, not by changing him, but by recognizing who you are. This, my friends, is only the beginning of the mystery, for the deeper question remains: what is it within us that draws us into these encounters, that binds empath and narcissist in archetypal dance? To answer this, we must descend still further into the labyrinths of the soul, into the place where shadow and self wrestle for dominion, and there we shall find not only the fear of the narcissist, but the hidden desire of the empath, the unconscious bond that must be broken if wholeness is to be found. To understand why the empath, particularly of the intuitive introverted type, is bound to the narcissist in this strange and painful dance, we must look not merely at typology, but at archetype, not merely at function, but at destiny. For the psyche does not arrange itself only through the neat categories of temperament. It unfolds as a drama between the conscious and the unconscious, a play enacted through symbols that appear in our relationships as much as in our dreams. Every encounter, especially those charged with suffering, carries the weight of an archetypal necessity. It is as if some hidden hand places two souls together, not for comfort, but for revelation. The empath is often drawn to the narcissist by an unconscious recognition. The wound in the other resonates with the wound within. The empath feels, though rarely articulates, "I know your pain, for I have touched something like it in myself." It is the ancient pull of the healer archetype, the instinct to mend what is broken, to pour light into darkness. But here lies the danger, for what is broken in the narcissist is not ready to be healed. It has been entombed, then yet made sacred as a false self. To touch it is to touch a live wire. The narcissist does not say, "Heal me," but rather, "Admire me, confirm me, worship the mask I have created." The empath, mistaking the mask for the wound, pours love into it and discovers only emptiness in return. This is the trap. The empath feels the hunger of the narcissist and confuses it with openness. They sense the abyss and mistake it for depth. They believe that if they can love enough, reflect enough, suffer enough, the abyss will be filled. But an abyss cannot be filled. It must be faced, and the narcissist will not face it. For to do so would mean shattering the very identity he has built. Thus, the empath gives and gives, while the narcissist takes and takes until the empath is hollowed out, and only then, perhaps, do they awaken to the truth that what they sought in the other was a reflection of their own shadow, their own denied longing. Here we must pause and look more deeply at the nature of empathy. Empathy is not only the ability to feel the feelings of another, it is also the capacity to dissolve boundaries, to allow the other's inner world to flow into one's own. In its highest form, this is sacred. It is the basis of love, of compassion, of communion. But without boundaries, empathy becomes possession. The empath absorbs what is not theirs, carries wounds that are not theirs, lives under burdens that do not belong to them. In such moments, the empath is not free, but ensnared, and the narcissist, who thrives on projection and possession, seizes upon this openness as a means of control. He pours his shadow into the empath, and the empath mistakes it for their own. Thus begins the cycle of confusion. Is this pain mine or his? Is this darkness my shadow or the one I love? The unconscious delights in such confusions, for they force growth, but they also cause great suffering. Many empaths find themselves weakened, doubting their own sanity, convinced they are unworthy, when in fact they are simply drowning in the projections of another. This is why the encounter with a narcissist is often a turning point in the life of the intuitive empath. It is the crucible in which they must learn the necessity of boundaries, the art of discernment, the courage of saying no. For only then do they move from mere empathy to true individuation. Only then does their gift cease to be a wound. Do you see now why the narcissist fears them? It is not only because they perceive too much, but because they force the narcissist's own unconscious into the open. The empath is like a dream made flesh, a dream in which the narcissist sees himself not as he wishes to be, but as he is. And just as one awakens terrified from a nightmare, so the narcissist recoils from the empath. He calls them too sensitive, too intense, too dramatic. These are defenses. Words used to dismiss what is in fact unbearable truth. But beneath the dismissal lies fear, the fear of being truly known. I recall a dream shared by a patient long ago. A man with grandiose fantasies and deep insecurity. He dreamt of being pursued by a woman with eyes like fire. She said nothing, but wherever she looked, the walls of his palace crumbled. The gold turned to dust. The throne became a child's toy. He fled from her, yet could not escape. He awoke in terror, convinced that this woman was a demon. Yet when we explored the dream, he realized she was not a demon at all, but the truth of his soul. She was the anima, the inner feminine, carrying the flame of truth that he had denied. She was terrifying because she revealed what he wished to conceal. In life, he met women who carried this same fire. He despised them, feared them, yet could not resist them. Do you see? The dream and the waking life were the same story, told in two languages. For the empath, the danger is also great. To carry the flame of truth is to become isolated, attacked, misunderstood. Others may envy or resent their clarity. They may be told they are wrong, that their perceptions are fantasies. But in time, the empath learns that this fire is not theirs alone. It belongs to the self, to the greater wholeness of which they are but a vessel. To refuse it is to fall into despair. To accept it is to become an instrument of transformation, not by forcing others to change, but by living in alignment with truth. The narcissist is frightened because the empath cannot be fully controlled. Yes, he may seduce them, confuse them, drain them, but always the empath's intuition whispers, even in the darkest hour, some part of them knows this is not love, this is not real. Something here is false. That whisper is the crack in the narcissist fortress. He senses it, and it makes him restless, enraged, desperate. He longs for the empath's admiration, yet dreads their perception. He clings, yet fears. This ambivalence is torture to him, and so he may discard the empath with cruelty, thinking to escape the gaze that undoes him. But he never forgets them, for they were the mirror in which he saw, if only for a moment, the truth of his soul. Do not imagine, however, that this dynamic is unique to individuals. It is the drama of our time, the narcissistic culture obsessed with image, with power, with the endless affirmation of the ego, is terrified of those who see beyond the artists, the mystics, the prophets, from the quiet souls who withdraw from the stage and perceive the deeper pattern. These are the empaths of the collective. And the culture, like the narcissist, mocks them, dismisses them, attacks them, yet still it fears them, for they reveal what cannot be admitted, that beneath the glitter lies emptiness, beneath the spectacle lies despair. They are the Cassandra voices of our age, speaking truth we would rather not hear, and yet, paradoxically, it is these very voices that are most needed, for without them we are lost in illusion. The narcissist without the empath is a king in an empty palace, worshipped by no one, consumed by his own lies. The culture without its seers is a machine devouring itself, chasing glory while forgetting soul. Thus, even as they are feared, the empaths are essential. They are the balance, the counterweight, the conscience of the age. They pay a heavy price for their gift, but their presence ensures that truth cannot be fully silenced. I speak these things not to romanticize suffering, but to show its meaning. For meaning is the key to endurance. If you, as an empath, have suffered at the hands of a narcissist, know that your suffering is not meaningless. It is part of an archetypal pattern, a crucible in which both you and the other were confronted with truth. You may feel broken, but in truth you have been initiated. You have seen behind the mask. You have touched the abyss, and though you tremble, you are stronger for it. The narcissist may flee from you, but you carry within you a knowledge that cannot be unlearned, the knowledge that illusion can never fully conceal the soul. The journey, then, is to turn this knowledge inward, for what you saw in the narcissist was not only his shadow, but also your own. The hunger you felt to heal him was the echo of your own hunger to be healed. The pain you absorbed was the reflection of your own wounds. If you can face this without fear, without denial, then you complete the alchemy. The empath ceases to be a victim and becomes a seeker. The gift of vision, once a curse, becomes a path to individuation, and then the narcissist's fear no longer matters, for you have become your own mirror, and in that mirror you behold not illusion, but self. And so, my friends, we come to the threshold of a deeper mystery. The narcissist fears you. Yes, but why do you fear him? Why do you return again and again to the one who wounds you? Why do you, who see so much, ignore your own vision until it nearly destroys you? The answer lies not in him, but in you. It lies in the archetype of the wounded healer, in the compulsion to repeat what was never healed in childhood, in the longing to redeem your own past by saving another. To explore this is to enter the very heart of the unconscious, where our greatest pain conceals our greatest potential, and that is where we must go next. You ask why the empath, who perceives so clearly, remains bound to the narcissist, even as they suffer. This question leads us into the labyrinth of the unconscious, where truth is never simple, but always layered in symbols, myths, and forgotten wounds. For the bond is not rational, it is archetypal. It is the repetition of an ancient pattern, the reenactment of a forgotten drama between child and parent, between soul and shadow. The empath returns to the narcissist because the psyche compels us to circle again and again around the wound that has not yet been healed. What is unfinished demands completion. What has been repressed demands recognition. The soul will not rest until it has looked fully into the eyes of its own pain. The empath is often born of environments where love was conditional, where care was entangled with demand, where sensitivity was both a gift and a curse. The child who becomes an empath learns to feel for others, because feeling for oneself was not enough to ensure survival. They become attuned to the moods, the shadows, the unspoken needs of the parent, because to miss those signals would invite rejection, punishment, or abandonment. Thus, the empath's gift of perception is born from necessity. They learn to read the unseen as a way of staying safe, but in this very adaptation lies the seed of their fate. For when they meet the narcissist, they meet again the parent who could not truly see them, and they are thrown back into the old drama, compelled to try once more to win love by healing another's emptiness. This is the archetype of the wounded healer. Jung, in Greek myth, was the wise centaur who could heal all wounds but his own. The empath carries the same paradox. They sense the wound in others and long to heal it. Yet, in doing so, they reveal their own unhealed wound. They enter the orbit of the narcissist because he embodies the very wound they carry within, the wound of being unseen, unloved for one's true self. And so the empath gives, hoping that this time the gift will be enough, that this time the child within will be redeemed. But the narcissist cannot receive it, for his wound is sealed behind walls of denial. And thus the pattern repeats, giving, draining, disappointment, despair. It is not weakness that keeps the empath bound, but archetypal compulsion. The psyche seeks wholeness, and wholeness can come only by bringing to consciousness that which has been denied. The empath must eventually realize that what they seek in the narcissist is their own lost self. The love they long to give and receive is the love they never gave themselves. The wound they hope to heal in the other is the wound they must face within. Until this realization dawns, the cycle continues, for the unconscious repeats what the conscious has not yet learned. The narcissist fears the empath because the empath threatens his false self. But the empath fears leaving the narcissist because the narcissist represents the unhealed bond to their own shadow. To walk away is to face the terrifying emptiness within, to accept that the wound cannot be healed by another, but must be integrated within the self. This is the moment of initiation, the dark night of the soul, where the empath must descend into their own abyss. It is a dangerous passage, for many resist it, preferring to remain entangled in the cycle of projection rather than facing the solitude of individuation. Yet only by enduring the loneliness of this descent can the empath emerge with true strength. No longer bound by compulsion, but guided by the self, let me tell you of a dream that reveals this truth. A woman who had suffered for years in the grip of a narcissistic partner dreamt she was wandering in a vast desert, searching for a fountain. At last, she saw a man holding a silver cup. He beckoned her, promising water, but when she drank, the cup was empty. Again and again she begged him, and again he lifted the cup with nothing in it. At last, in despair, she fell to her knees, and there, in the dust, she noticed a small spring bubbling from the earth at her feet. The water had been within her reach all along, but she had been blinded by her thirst for the man's cup. This dream, though personal, is universal. The water of healing does not come from the narcissist. It comes from within, from the forgotten spring of the self. This is why the narcissist ultimately loses power over the empath, though it may take years for the realization to ripen. For the empath, unlike the narcissist, is capable of growth. Their suffering, though intense, becomes the fuel for individuation. They learn boundaries. They discover their own worth. They awaken to their own shadow. They pass through the fire and emerge transformed. The narcissist, meanwhile, remains trapped in his illusions, fearing the very truth that could set him free. And so, though he may appear powerful, it is the empath who carries the seed of liberation. The narcissist fears this not only for what it reveals about him, but for what it means, that he is dependent on the very ones he despises, that his mask cannot survive without the gaze of those who see through it. Consider the archetype of the mirror. In fairy tales, the wicked queen consults the mirror to confirm her beauty. But what if the mirror spoke truth rather than flattery? What if it showed her aging face, her envy, her fear? She would shatter it in rage. So it is with the narcissist. The empath is the mirror that reflects not the mask but the shadow. The narcissist wishes to smash it, to silence it, to discard it. Yet he cannot forget what he saw, for the image lingers in his soul. And the empath, though wounded, carries within them the memory that they are capable of reflecting truth. That mirror, once broken, reforms in new strength, for truth cannot be destroyed. In the larger arc of individuation, the meeting of empath and narcissist is a sacred trial. It forces the empath to confront the shadow of self-abandonment and the narcissist to confront the shadow of self-deception. Rarely does the narcissist accept this confrontation. More often, he flees, seeking another mirror that flatters rather than reveals. But the empath, if they persevere, gains the treasure of self-knowledge they learn that their gift is not to save others, but to see, to know, to live in alignment with truth. They become healers, not because they heal everyone they meet, but because they have healed themselves, and in doing so, radiate a presence that awakens others. This transformation is not achieved by denying the wound, but by embracing it, for the wound is the place where the self enters. The empath who has been broken learns compassion not as pity, but as strength. They know the taste of emptiness, and so they can accompany others through it without fear. They know the danger of illusion, and so they can discern truth even in chaos. They know the cost of love without boundaries, and so they learn to love without losing themselves. In this way, their suffering is transfigured into wisdom. They become what the narcissist most fears, a soul who cannot be deceived, who cannot be possessed, who carries the light of the self unshaken. If we step back, we see that this entire drama is an image of the greater mystery of the psyche. The narcissist is the ego inflated, clinging to its illusions of grandeur. The empath is the soul sensitive to the unconscious, drawn toward integration. Their encounter is the clash of ego and self, mask and truth, shadow and light. And though it is painful, it is also necessary, for without such encounters, we would never awaken. It is suffering that forces us to grow. It is fear that drives us into the arms of transformation. The narcissist may run from this truth, but the empath, if they are courageous, will allow it to transform them. And that is why, in the end, the empath is the one who emerges whole. But what of the narcissist? Is he forever condemned to illusion? Not necessarily. There are rare moments when the mirror breaks through, when the gaze of the empath lingers in the soul, when a crack opens in the fortress of denial. If the narcissist can endure the terror of that moment, if he can admit even a glimpse of his own shadow, then the possibility of healing begins. But this is rare, for it requires humility. And humility is the very thing the narcissist fears. Yet also, the presence of the empath plants a seed. It may lie dormant for years, even decades, but the psyche does not forget. The unconscious always waits, always knocks at the door. And perhaps one day, when the defenses are weary, the seed will sprout, and the narcissist too will be forced to face his truth. And so the empath is both curse and blessing to the narcissist. Curse, because they see too much. Blessing, because they are the only ones who might awaken him. But the empath must never confuse their role. They are not responsible for his healing. They are not the savior. They are the mirror, nothing more, nothing less. To embrace this is to step into freedom. To forget it is to remain bound. This is the lesson written into the archetype, the wisdom hidden in the suffering. And when the empath learns it, they no longer fear the narcissist. Instead, they understand, and with understanding comes liberation. We stand then at the threshold of resolution. The narcissist fears the empath because they reveal the truth he cannot face. The empath fears leaving the narcissist because he embodies the wound they have not yet faced in themselves. Their meeting is painful, but it is also sacred. for it brings both face to face with the shadow. The narcissist may flee, but the empath, if they are willing, may emerge transformed. This is the mystery of the soul, that what wounds us also awakens us, that what terrifies us also liberates us, that the darkest encounters are the gateways to the light of the self. We come now to the final turn of this spiral, where the question that first drew us here, why INTJ and INFJ empaths frighten narcissists, dissolves into a larger mystery of the human soul. For it is not only a matter of type, of psychological temperament, or even of individual history. It is a revelation of the eternal struggle between falsehood and truth, shadow and self, illusion and wholeness. The narcissist is a symbol of what happens when the ego refuses the descent into the unconscious, when it builds instead a fortress of mirrors to protect itself from the abyss. The empath, especially the intuitive, introverted kind, is the symbol of what happens when one is compelled to listen to that abyss, to feel its whispers, to see its symbols. And when these two meet, it is as if two archetypes collide. The one who hides from truth and the one who cannot help but see it. In every age, the world has both feared and needed such seers. They carry within them the archetype of the prophet, the mystic, the healer, who reads what others deny. Their eyes penetrate the veil, and their sensitivity reveals not only the wounds of others, but the hidden structures of culture itself. And always, those invested in illusion react with fear, anger, dismissal. The narcissist is merely the personal embodiment of this collective fear. He is the mask made flesh, and the empath is the mirror that breaks the mask. This is why their encounters feel so mythic, so fated, so charged with destiny. They are not simply two people in conflict. They are enacting a drama as old as humanity itself. I tell you now, the task of the empath is not to destroy the narcissist, nor to save him, but to awaken themselves. For the narcissist is not only an outer figure, he is also an inner figure, a part of the psyche of us all. Each of us has a mask, an inflated ego, a resistance to truth. Each of us has an inner narcissist who fears being seen, and each of us has an inner empath who longs to see, to heal, to connect. The encounter in the outer world forces us to confront these inner figures. To fear the narcissist is to fear one's own illusions. To be bound to him is to be bound to one's own shadow. To awaken from him is to awaken to oneself. The INTJ or INFJ empath, with their gift of intuition, stands as an exemplar of this inner drama. Their very nature is to turn inward, to listen to the whispers of the unconscious, to trace the patterns that others overlook. Their feeling, though introverted, gives them the moral compass to sense truth, to feel falseness. They are not easily dazzled by appearances. They are drawn instead to essence. And so, when they meet the narcissist, they pierce the illusion, but the danger is that they pierce also their own defenses. For in him, they see not only his wound, but their own. It is this doubling of vision that makes the encounter so intense, so inescapable, so transformative. The narcissist fears this double vision because it reveals his hidden child, the one who was abandoned, unloved, unseen. The empath fears it because it reveals their own abandoned child, the one who first learned to survive by attending to others' needs. In this mirror, both are confronted with the same truth, that the wound cannot be denied forever. The narcissist responds with rage, denial, manipulation. The empath responds with sacrifice, overgiving, entanglement. But the way forward is the same for both: to turn inward, to accept the wound, to embrace the shadow, to move toward individuation. What then is individuation? It is the process of becoming whole, of integrating all that has been denied, rejected, projected. It is to walk into the dark forest of one's own unconscious and to claim even the monsters as part of oneself. For only then does the ego seize its inflation, its need to dominate, its fear of collapse. And only then does the empath seize their compulsion to heal others at the cost of themselves. Individuation is the path of both, though few take it. The narcissist resists because it threatens his illusion. The empath resists because it threatens her longing to save. But for those who dare, individuation is the only true liberation. It is the place where fear ends, because nothing remains hidden. Do you understand now why the narcissist fears the empath most? It is because the empath embodies what he cannot face, the unvarnished truth of the unconscious. They might fear enemies, competitors, critics, but these can be dismissed, conquered, silenced. The empath cannot be silenced because their very being speaks truth. They do not need to accuse. Their presence is accusation enough. Their intuition whispers the shadow into the open. Their gaze reveals what he wishes to conceal. And so he is terrified, not of their strength, but of their sight. For to be seen truly is to be undone. But what of you, the empath? Do you see why you frighten? Do you see the responsibility you carry? It is not to wield this sight as a weapon, nor to bury it as a curse, but to carry it as a sacred flame. To see does not mean to save. To feel does not mean to absorb. To understand does not mean to sacrifice yourself on the altar of another's denial. Your gift is not for their salvation, but for your own wholeness. If they awaken through it, so be it. If they flee, so be it. Your task remains the same: to live in alignment with the self, to be the mirror without losing yourself in the reflection. I have said before that the unconscious speaks in images. Let me give you one more image to carry with you as you leave this hall of words. Imagine a lantern carried into a cavern. The lantern does not attack the darkness. It does not plead with the shadows to change. It simply shines, and by shining, it reveals. Some who see the light recoil in fear, for they preferred the safety of the dark. Others draw near, for they long to see what lies hidden. The lantern does not choose, it only shines. So too with you. You are the lantern. Your empathy is the flame. The narcissist fears you because you shine without asking permission. But you must learn this: your flame is not theirs to consume. Guard it, tend it, let it grow brighter. And in time it will guide you into the wholeness for which you were born. I do not promise you that this path is easy. It is lonely. For few understand it is heavy. For truth is always a burden. It is dangerous. For the world resists being seen. But it is also glorious, for to walk this path is to live in reality, not illusion. To feel the depths of the soul, not the shallow surface of masks. To know oneself, not merely to perform. This is the path of individuation, the path of the self, and though it passes through the valley of shadow, it ends in light. Remember this, the narcissist fears you. Yes, but beneath his fear lies his longing. He longs for what you embody, though he cannot admit it. He longs for authenticity, for connection, for wholeness. He fears because he desires, and in this paradox lies the tragedy of his life. Do not let it become yours. Do not sacrifice your wholeness to his fear. Do not bind your flame to his shadow. Walk your path and let your very being be the answer. For in the end, what terrifies him most is also what saves you. That you are the mirror of truth, and truth cannot be destroyed. So I leave you with this. Do not despise your gift, even if it brings you pain. Do not curse your sight, even if it isolates you. Do not betray yourself in order to soothe the fear of another. You are the rare souls who stand at the threshold of the unconscious, who listen where others ignore, who see where others deny. Carry this gift with reverence. Protect it with boundaries. Nourish it with solitude, and let it lead you not into the prison of another's illusions, but into the vast freedom of your own wholeness. For this is the destiny of the empath, not to be consumed by the narcissist, not to be broken by fear, but to become whole, luminous, unshakable. And when you do, you will frighten not only the narcissist, but all illusions, all falsehoods, all masks. And that is as it should be, for the soul was not born to serve lies, it was born to embody truth. And truth, once embodied, is the most frightening and the most liberating force of all.